Thanks very much for that, and thanks for allowing me to join you today. I've felt very inspired by even the short amount of today's discussions that I've heard about how many of you are addressing that issue of the 2.5 billion unbanked around the globe. But you'll forgive me for adjusting the focus of the lens now to the situation in the UK, a nation which is proud of its position as a global leader in financial services, but which can perhaps be less proud of its record on financial exclusion here in one of the most financially developed of nations. For instance, those 2 million adults who still have no bank account. Half of them, it has to be said, previously had a bank account and decided they didn't enjoy the experience enough to continue with it. Those are facing a poverty premium of £1,300 a year, already in most cases on very low incomes. An estimated 2 million people who take out a high-cost loan as they are unable to access any other form of credit, and 8.8 million who are over-indebted. And while much of the debate at the moment as we run up to an election in the UK is on the public finances, quite rightly, there is a need to focus at least some of our attention on the crisis in private finances, which leaves 13 million of our citizens without sufficient savings to see them through a short-term crisis in their incomes. Now, because of that, we established a Financial Inclusion Commission for the UK, an independent commission which is funded by MasterCard, that has inclusion as one of its corporate objectives, but wholly independent. And unlike many commissions who take minutes but last years, our timescale was very short indeed. We had our first meeting in September, and we will be publishing our report on Wednesday of this week, with the aim of trying to make sure that the issue of financial exclusion is as high as possible on the agenda of public and political debate in the UK in the run-up to the election, to raise awareness of the issue and to urge policymakers, regulators, the financial services industry itself and other key stakeholders to support that aim of making the United Kingdom a more financially inclusive society. Now, in order to do that, we took evidence from a large range of organisations and individuals, 84 in total, and we're very grateful for the response that we had in that short period of time. We took evidence in East London, in Cardiff, in Liverpool, in Glasgow, and in Westminster. In fact, in the room in Westminster Abbey where Thomas More was imprisoned before being taken off to the Tower for execution, we wanted our witnesses to recognise just how serious this issue was. And what we found as a result of that huge amount of evidence which was provided to us, and I should say that the Commission is chaired by Sir Sherard Cooper-Coles, who sends his apologies for not being with us this afternoon, and with the president of Sir Brian Pomeroy, who led the UK task force, Treasury Task Force on Financial Inclusion, with representation from across the political spectrum, Conservative, Labour and Liberal Democrat, and with a range of experts, including Professor Sharon Collard, who's with us at the conference today. And what we did was to use that evidence to really map the extent of the problem in the UK. And what we found was this, that financial services are still not meeting the needs of low-income consumers in the UK. The pattern of services which are provided just do not match the pattern of many people's lives. And that's where the contribution that so many of you are making is so important. We found that alternative providers who might better meet people's needs face significant challenges, some regulatory, but a range of other challenges. Most people don't understand even the basics of personal finance and are not generally engaged in money management, and too many are excluded from access to mainstream credit. And that problem is being made worse by the good intentions of regulation to seek to limit the interest rates on some forms of short-term credit, which have meant a considerable drop in the supply of credit, but no reduction in the demand or the need for it. And we're facing a number of new challenges which will, in the UK, make the problem worse unless we seek to address it fully. We have some important welfare changes which in themselves are very commendable. The introduction of a system of universal credit, which will mean that people, instead of being paid weekly or fortnightly, will receive their benefits a month in arrears. That is going to take some money management for many of those people to adapt their patterns. We've got the changing technology, which so many of you have been discussing here today, and which provide, in our view, real opportunities for challenging financial exclusion, but in some respects actually make that problem worse for many of our citizens. We've got the problem of the economic downturn, which has left many people facing very severe debt, and we have the prospect, in the fullness of time, of increasing interest rates, which could tip many people over the edge totally. So our plea is for a sense of urgency to deal with the issue here in the UK, and for those attempts to be matched with what is happening elsewhere in the globe. We believe that there's a serious lack of leadership in the UK on issues of financial exclusion, and we believe that we should designate a senior minister as the government lead on financial inclusion and financial capability, with the title of Minister for Financial Health. We believe that we need to establish a ministerial champion in every government department who will take responsibility to give the lead to what that department does on financial inclusion. We believe there's need to establish an independent group to advise ministers on how to promote financial health of the type that existed with the Financial Inclusion Task Force, which was wound up in 2011. And we believe that the regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, should have a statutory duty to promote financial inclusion. And the final recommendation in that leadership section is of most relevance to people here, because we believe it's necessary to establish an independent, industry-funded think tank to work with consumer groups, tackle regulatory challenges, and facilitate innovation in the interests of financially excluded consumers. In other words, a form of Centre for Financial Services Innovation of a type which could be there independently to come forward with some of the proposals which would improve the way in which financial services adapt to the needs of those excluded groups. Now, the UK is a global hub for financial technology innovation. The market is already estimated to be worth 20 billion here in the UK, as many of you know. But we need to make sure that we make the most of those opportunities that are available, and we believe that a separate think tank of that form, funded by the industry, because it's a benefit to the industry as well as to those excluded consumers, could be of great value. So I want to pay tribute to what all of you are doing to try to challenge financial exclusion around the globe. As I say, I've taken great inspiration from listening to what you have to say, and indeed much of the evidence that was presented to us as a commission from outside the United Kingdom, and it's very clear to me, and I think to the other commissioners, that there is a great deal that the United Kingdom can learn from the experience elsewhere in the globe about how we deal with this pressing issue, and one which has implications not only for the individuals directly affected, with that huge poverty premium that so many face, the lack of access to the sort of services that all of us take for granted, or all of us should take for granted, but has a major economic cost as well as a social cost. So I want to pay tribute to you for everything that you are doing, and I very much look forward to working with you in the months ahead, and I hope that many of you will take the opportunity on Wednesday to look at the recommendations in the Financial Inclusion Commission report and do your best to promote an improvement in the situation in the UK, which is linked carefully with what you're doing around the world. Thank you again for your time this afternoon.